And I say again because if you don't know on Spotify, I just did a 2 hour, 30 minutes traders war room on YouTube. I'm a little bit tired, but it was really good. It was worth it. We broke down market structure, market sentiment, fundamentals of markets. But just because I did all of that and I've been up since about 6 looking at price structures for tomorrow and rest of the week, does not mean I get to break the promise. The promise is one chapter a day, every day. Sometimes it is absolutely crucial to do things out of discipline. Discipline means whether you like it or not, because discipline creates consistency. Consistency produces results. All right. So today we're looking at chapter 7 of our book, The Richest Man of Babylon. We are on episode 19. Shake my hand. Welcome once again to another episode of the 365 Money Heist podcast, where all we do is read books. We read good books, we read wealth creation books, we read lifestyle creation books, the type of life that you want to live. Someone has lived it, someone has created it, someone has manifested it. So who better to ask than someone who's walked that path ahead? That's what a good book in your hand can do to you. It can fast track your life 20 years from now into today. It can become the time machine that you need to get to where you want to be. Only you know where you want to be. But I find that reading very well structured, articulative, empiric, data-driven books helps me with that, right? So in season 1 of the podcast, the first book we did, just as a recap, Science of Getting Rich, absolutely phenomenal. And now we are almost towards the end of The Richest Man of Babylon. And it's a beautiful Sunday, and I am a little bit tired, but the beauty of chapter 7 is it's only about 6 pages. It's like one of the shortest chapters I probably will ever do on the podcast, right? So yesterday's chapter, guys, you remember the man's went to go talk to a gold lender. This guy got very lucky, got very, the king gave him a whole lot of gold and a whole lot of money, more money than he had ever in his entire life. In fact, if we looked at his saving structure, he had 3 pieces of gold after working for 3 years, which meant 1 piece of gold per every year he worked as savings. And then after the gift the king gave him, he now had 50 pieces of gold. So he pretty much had a 50 years worth of savings in the palm of his hand, and he immediately wanted to put that money to work. But to do that, based on everything that we've learned in the other chapters, you always go to the experts in the field. So you went to a gold lender, and a gold lender said a lot of important things about who to borrow, how to borrow. Be careful how you screw yourself over when you start to come across some money. Be careful that you don't do anything that will hinder your own growth, because gold bringeth unto its possessor responsibility and a changed position with his fellow man. It doesn't change you, it changes your level of operation with the people you're used to. Be very careful of that. Be very careful of that, right? It bringeth fear, lest he lose it or it be tricked away from him. So you start operating in a very weird way. I won't even talk to my own life experience, but I do fundamentally believe something that Grant Cardone once said. It was like, millionaires are probably one of the scared smallest group of people in the world, because once you get into that category, that 6-figure category, I deal with traders all the time. And once traders get into that 6-figure range, most of their trades become very extra caution, very, very, very sketchy. You can actually tell, it took you like one standard lot size to get here, proper risk management. But all of a sudden, when you finally get there, they dialed down. Now, there's healthy dialing down, which means you want to manage your risk, which is very good, very wise. Then there's that fear type of dial down, where you don't want the needle to move up or down in case you are wrong and you drop all the way. All right. And so he dealt with all these issues. And the final thing that he dealt with was this idea of borrowing. The whole chapter was based around, this man who had just gotten 50 gold pieces, actually, navigating around the world of possibly lending or investing this money to put to work to him. And the final quote I'd like us to go through from yesterday's chapter was, to secure wealth quickly, youth often borrows unwisely. So he's not like Leroy. He's not like me, who's completely against debt. Like, I'm very much aware that there is a wise way to move around debt. And maybe at some point in time in the podcast, we'll talk about that. But he's talking about unwise borrowing. Youth never having had experience cannot realize that hopeless debt is like a deep pit into which one may descend quickly and where one may struggle vainly for many days. Now, remember, guys, until you have done all the stages, for now, avoid debt. When you get to, wise debt, we'll talk about that. But right now, you should be putting your 10% away. You should be putting your money to work. You should be working on the 7 cures of a lean purse. Governing all of that is book number 1, a certain way of doing things, a specific type of way of thinking. That's all you should be doing with your time right now. All right. And then the quotation continues. It is a pit of sorrow, debt, unwise debt. It is a pit of sorrow and regrets where brightness of the sun is overcast and night maid is unhappy but restless sleeping. Yet I do not discourage borrowing gold. I encourage it. I recommend it to be wise purpose. Better little caution than great regret. So just be smart about what you're doing where you're borrowing. Right, so we're going to move on to chapter 7, the walls of Babylon. We're on page 119 of the book. This is my all-time favorite book. I'm excited to have done this with you in the podcast. This really changed my life. I think you guys will recall my old man gave this to me when I was 13. Right, so let me read. Well, let's drink first, then we read. My voice is groggy. It's 8:30 p.m. and I've been talking since 4:30 p.m. Non-stop, actually live on this channel. And yeah, so let's go. Old Banzer, grim warrior of another day, stood guard at the passageway leading to the top of the ancient walls of Babylon. Up above, valiant defenders were battling to hold the walls. Upon them depended the future existence of this great city with its hundreds of thousands of citizens. Over the walls came the roar of the attacking armies, the yelling of men, the trampling of thousands of horses, the deafening boom of the battering rams pounding their bronze gates. In the street behind the gate lounged the spearmen, waiting to defend the entrance should the gates give away. They were but few for the task. The main armies of Babylon were with the king, far away in the east of the great expedition against the Elamites. No attack upon the city having been anticipated during their absence, the defending forces were small. So the main army is fighting somewhere else and the defending forces are small within the city. Unexpectedly from the north bore down the mighty armies of the Assyrians, I guess, and now the walls must hold or Babylon was doomed. But Banzer were a great crowd of citizens, white-faced and terrified, eagerly seeking news about the battle. With hushed away, they viewed the stream of the wounded and dead being carried or led out of the passageway. Here was the crucial point of attack. After 3 days of circling about the city, the enemy had suddenly thrown its great strength against this section of this gate. The defenders from the top of the wall fought off the climbing platforms and scaling ladders of the attacks with arrows burning oil, and if any reached the top spears against the defenders, thousands of enemy archers poured a deadly barrage of arrows. I mean, these are my kind of movies, by the way. I'm into like Game of Thrones, fantasy stuff, Harry Potter, Troy, so I, as reading this, I'm actually formulating this battle in my mind. Now, old Banzer had the vantage point of news. He was the closest to the conflict and first to hear each first impulse of the frenzied attackers. An elderly merchant crowded close to him, his placed hands quivering. Tell me, he pleaded. They cannot get in. My sons are with the good king. There is no one to protect my old wife. My goods they will steal all. My food they will leave nothing. We are too old to defend ourselves, too old for slaves. We shall starve, we shall die. Tell me they cannot get in. Calm thyself, good merchant, the guard responded. The walls of Babylon are strong. Go back to Baza and tell your wife that the walls will protect you and all your possessions as safely as they protect the rich treasures of the king. Keep close to the wall, lest the arrows flying over strike you. A woman with babe in arms took the old man's place as he withdrew. Sergeant, what news from the top? Tell me truly, I may reassure my poor husband. He lies with fever from his terrible wounds, yet he insists upon his armor and his spear to protect me, who am with child. Terrible, he says, will be the vengeful lust of our enemies should they break in. Be thou of good heart, thou mother, that is, and it is again to be. The walls of Babylon will protect you and your babies. They are high and strong. Hear ye not the yells of our valiant defenders as they empty the cauldrons of burning oil upon the ladder scalers? Yes, do I hear, and also the roar of battering rams that do hammer at our gate. Back to thy husband, tell him the gates are strong and withstand the rams. Also, that the scalers climb the walls, but to receive the weight and spear thrust. Watch thy way and hasten behind yon buildings. Banzer stepped aside to clear the passage for heavily armed reinforcements. As the clanking bronze shields and heavy tread, they tramped by a small girl plucked at his girdle. Tell me, please, soldier, are we safe? She pleaded. I hear the awful noise. I see men all bleeding. I am so frightened. What will become of our family, of my mother, the little brother, the baby? The grim old campaigner blinked his eyes and thrust forward his chin as he beheld the child. Be not afraid, little one, he reassured her. The walls of Babylon will protect you, and the mother and the little brother and the baby. It was for the safety of such as you that the good queen Semiramis built them over 100 years ago. Never have they been broken through. Go back and tell your mother and little brother and your baby that the walls of Babylon will protect them, and they need have no fear. Day after day, old Branza stood at his post and watched the reinforcements file up the passageway. There to stay and fight until, wounded or dead, they came down once more. Around him, unceasingly crowded the throngs of frightened citizens, eagerly seeking to learn if the walls would hold. To all he gave his answer, and with fine dignity of an old soldier: the walls of Babylon will protect you. For 3 weeks and 5 days the attack waged, and scarcely ceasing violence, harder and grimmer, set the jaw of Banza as the passage behind him wet with the blood of the many wounded, as churned into mud, but never ceasing streams of men passing and staggering down. Each day the slaughtered attackers piled up the heaps before the wall. Each night they were carried back and buried by their comrades. Upon the 5th night of the 4th week, the clamor without diminished. The first streaks of daylight illuminating the plains disclosed great clouds of dust raised by the retreating armies. A mighty shout went up from the defenders. There was no mistaking its meaning. It was repeated by the waiting troops behind the walls. It was echoed by the citizens upon the streets. It was swept over the city with the violence of a storm. People rushed from the houses. The streets were jammed with the throbbing mob. The pent-up fear of weeks found an outlet in the wild chorus of joy. From the top of the high tower of the temple of Bel burst forth the flames of victory. Skyward floated the column blue smoke to carry the message far and wide. The walls of Babylon had once again repulsed a mighty and vicious foe, determined to loot her rich treasures and ravish and enslave her citizens. Babylon endured century after century because it was fully protected. It could not afford to be otherwise. The walls of Babylon were an outstanding example of a man's need and desire for protection. This desire to inherit in the human race, it was just as strong today as it ever was, but we have developed broader and better plans to accomplish the same purpose. In this day, behind the impregnable walls of insurance, savings accounts, and dependable investments, we guard ourselves against unexpected tragedies that may enter any door and set themselves before a side. We cannot afford to be without adequate protection. And that's the end of the chapter, guys. It is quite a nice and sweet chapter with a cool story behind it. But look, man, the author's point is, in this day behind the impregnable walls of insurance, saving accounts, and dependable investments, we can guard ourselves against unexpected tragedies that might enter any door and set themselves before us. And because the chapter is so short, I want to end tonight's podcast, as early as possible as well, for my own, I need a mental break from the stuff I've been doing today. I want to say a lot of the time, especially with portfolio management, if we're talking about investing, if we're talking about long-term investing, long-term wealth creation, you will absolutely, undeniably always need a protection hedge, right, in your investment plan. So that means, never accept you put your eggs in one basket, right? So your portfolio can't be 90% crypto and 90 of that percent is 40% meme coins, right? That is not a smart move, because tragedy befalls at any point in time. Enemies will come for your account. Enemies this particular moment mean volatility in the markets. Bad news. In 2020, it was COVID. In 2008, it was the highest in crisis. In 2013, it was the neoliberalism crisis. In 2000, and in the year 2000, it was the dot-com boom market crash. All these things are cyclical, right? So in the world of investing and wealth creation, you will go through waves of cyclical adjustments. In fact, in today's Traders War Room on our YouTube channel, I spent an hour practically mapping out how, especially in the markets, how it's very difficult to say you didn't see it coming, right? Because markets have cycles. They've got good times and bad times, right? So I think I'm not even going to add anymore. I'm going to leave it as how it was beautifully said in the last paragraph of chapter 7. In this day behind the impregnable walls of insurance, savings, and accounts, and dependable investments, we can guard ourselves against the unexpected tragedies that enter any door and set themselves before and far aside. We cannot afford to be without adequate protection. 365, happy week, guys. See you tomorrow, Monday, for another reading. Tomorrow we'll be doing chapter 8 of the book, and as we slowly but surely progress, by Tuesday there'll be a chapter for Tuesday. I can see another chapter for Wednesday, and then by Thursday this week this book will be over, which means this coming Friday we'll be starting book number 3. Isn't that amazing? This Friday we'll be starting book number 3. Please note, we're already doing the 3rd book, and we have not even gone 4 weeks. We haven't gone 1 month, and we've already done, or we'll be approaching our 3rd book, right? So you can do this 1 chapter a day, every day, so you can combat the level at which you're at with accurate knowledge. Shake my hand if you're watching on the live stream, or if you're going to watch a recording of this on YouTube. Shake my hand wherever you are. If you listen to Spotify in your car, in your house, I appreciate you. 365, man, have a good day. Peace.